Hello, everyone. Welcome. This time I'm going to invite everyone to turn on their cameras if you feel comfortable. So, hi, everyone. Welcome. Hi, everyone in student activities. So thank you all for joining us. I'm super excited about this event. For those that you don't know me, my name is Katie Basignano. I'm the personal counselor here at FIDM. We also have Gwen Matos. She's also here. She's our new personal counselor. Say hi, Gwen. So as personal counselor, along with speaking with students about their own mental health, I often have conversations with students on how they can support their loved one's mental health. So whether that be a friend or a roommate or a partner or a family member, they might be experiencing some sort of crisis or had a major event in their life that they're struggling through, or they're just having a really bad day. And the student really wants to be able to be there for them. Oftentimes with that conversation though, the student really doesn't know how to approach their friend or start the conversation, or it might be a really scary or uncomfortable conversation with them. They might not know what to say. They might be afraid that they might say something wrong. So these are all really understandable fears, but it's also really important to be able to have those conversations with your peers or your loved ones and be able to be there to support them, and also to be able to support your own mental health. So, which is why FIDM wanted to be able to provide you students with ways to be more comfortable speaking about your own mental health and supporting others. So to do that, we also partnered with Born This Way Foundation. And now I'm going to turn it over to Shadil, and she'll explain a little bit more about that.
Hey everyone, my name is Shadil. My pronouns are she and ella. I am the communications and creative manager at Born This Way Foundation. I started at Born This Way Foundation when I was in college. Actually, I was 19 years old, and I learned about an organization whose mission was to support youth mental health and build a kinder and braver world. And quite frankly, in my personal life, I'd never been invited to really have a conversation about mental health. I think there were always conversations like generally around how are you feeling, or hey, I noticed this about you today. Are you okay? But never quite frankly about my mental health. And so of course, I fell in love with this work. And since then, 10 years ago, I have dedicated my life and my professional career to creating and curating conversations and really listening and ensuring that young people, that all of us feel supported, that we know that we're not alone in this. And so I'm just really, really honored to be here. I think it's exciting that there are students in spaces at FIDM that are having these conversations, and even those beyond this Zoom, beyond that activities office. We know that young people prioritize their mental health. We know that your generation is actually having more dialogue, be it online or offline, about mental health. And this is extremely, extremely exciting, because it means that you are quite literally breaking down the stigma. Just by being in this room, you are helping to eliminate the stigma that surrounds mental health. And together we're breaking barriers, whether we believe it or not, in this way. And I'm just so incredibly honored and proud to be in this space with you and to be in conversation with you. As I shared, Born This Way Foundation, our mission is to support youth mental health and build a kinder and braver world. And we were founded by Lady Gaga and her mom, Cynthia Germanata. Lady Gaga experienced a lot of bullying in her young life, and also heard from fans just their own experiences and what they were going through, either in concert venues or in conversation. And so she started Born This Way Foundation as a way and a vehicle to give her platform to us, to young people, and for us to ensure that we're connecting with each other, and really expanding on resources. And one of those resources that brings us here today is called the Be There certificate. The Be There certificate is a free, self-paced, interactive mental health course. And quite frankly, when I hear the word mental health course, I'm like, oh, so clinical. But what's really cool about the Be There certificate, I would say, is that we worked with young people to create it. And so there were students, there were clubs and organizations in different parts of the US that helped us bring this tool to life. And so it's available in English, Spanish, super proud to say it's available in Spanish, and French. And it's at its very core, if I really had to just give it a couple of words into what this program is, it teaches us how to lean into seemingly uncomfortable conversations. We know, and maybe perhaps I know I have been caught in the, hey, how are you? And then someone responds and they're like, wow, I'm actually feeling terrible today. And my inclination is to say, okay, well, let's sit down and let's have a conversation about it. But not all of us feel prepared to do it. And even then, in those moments, I'll be frank, I didn't feel confident in really leaning into that conversation. And so the Be There certificate walks us through different scenarios and frameworks on how to do that. We really invite you to take some time out of your day to check the certificate out. You can do it at your own pace. Maddie and Lexi, to one student, well, both students, but one a FIDM student and the other a wonderful colleague of mine at Born This Way Foundation, will share just like what it looks like from their perspective to take the course and to really walk through it, but also how it applies to your life and like actual scenarios. And so I will do what our co-founder Lady Gaga does and hand the mic. And so with that, I would love to just dive right into this conversation again with all of you, everyone who's on the Zoom and everyone who's in the room. If there's a point in the conversation where you really want to share something, we invite you to raise your hand or to share it in the chat, of course, with just being mindful that we're here to talk about the ways in which we support one another. And if in the process you hear something or you feel something that can feel a little heavy or triggering even, remember that there are mental health professionals in this space that you can turn to. And that's Katie and Gwen. And so with that, I will pass it over to Lexi, who will then hand it over to Madeline and then Katie, so we can introduce ourselves and start this conversation with all of you. So without further ado, Lexi.
Hello, I am Lexi. I am a current FIDM student. I am in my junior year, my third year, whichever you prefer. And I am a current digital marketing major. And I'm also, a social media intern here at FIDM, and I've been a social ambassador for about a year now. So very involved in the school, and I love FIDM, and I love that, FIDM is giving us this platform to talk about this very important issue. So thank you, and on to you, Maddie.
Hello, everybody. I am Maddie Freitas. I am a first-year student at Elizabethtown College, which is in Pennsylvania, if you don't know. I am honored to be a colleague of Shadil's at Born This Way Foundation. I've been with them for the fall, doing some communications and social media work, and I'm just all in support of their mission, and I'm honored to be able to build a kinder and braver world and participate with you all tonight. And who am I passing it to? Katie?
Yes. Thank you, Maddie. Hi, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Katie Pezzignano, and I am the personal counselor here at FIDM, a licensed therapist and a national certified counselor. And my role here at FIDM is just to provide support, mental health, academic, social, any kind of support for you students. Everything is free, safe, confidential. So I'm really excited to be here to kind of bring my perspective to the conversation.
Thank you all so much. I was so excited about each of you and this conversation that I forgot we had a message from our co-founder. And so I'll invite our friends at FIDM, I believe, to share with you all.
Hi, this is Lady Gaga. We often want to check in on our friends, but may not always have the proper tools for how to do that. When you take the Be There certificate online course, you'll learn Be There's 5 golden rules, a simple, actionable framework that can teach us how to recognize when someone is struggling with their mental health, what your role should be in supporting that person, and how to safely connect someone who is suffering to get the help they need. I got my certificate, and I would love to celebrate you and yours. Learn the knowledge, skills, and confidence you need to safely support anyone who may be struggling with their mental health at BeThereCertificate.org.
Oh, I get goosebumps just knowing that that the folks who are leading the organization are taking the certificate, are walking the walk, and they're walking it with us. And I really feel in a lot of ways through her support, through the support of her mom, our president and co-founder, and the rest of our team, that we really, through these conversations and leaders like the team at FIDM that's helping us organize this conversation, and of course Maddie and Lexi, that we get to do this. We get to hold each other's hands in this process and remind each other that we're not alone. And she did mention in the video just that whatever you may be feeling and whatever challenges may arise, that this course can support you in that process and help you support your peers. And so I love to start with that. Let's start with really thinking about how our collective experiences these past several years, more than most, with the pandemic, and also with our multiple ongoing sort of overlapping crisis. There are things that we have experienced as a collective that has in some way, shapes, or form made us feel isolated, but really brings us together because of the shared experience and the social connection that we really seek. And so I'd love to hear from Maddie and from Lexi. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing that young people are facing for, in regards to their mental health right now?
I can kick it off. Challenges with mental health. I think young people carry a lot, especially like Shadil mentioned, through like overlapping crises in our world. Like the world can feel heavy and we carry a lot of that. And then in addition, as young like students, a lot of pressure placed on us to build a future, build a life, take all the classes, do it all. And I think that's really challenging to sort through what really matters and what we want to be focusing on. So navigating all of that, I think, is really challenging, and making space to rest, to take a breath, and realize that the weight is not all on your shoulders. You don't have to carry the world on your shoulders. I think that is essential. Lexi, I don't know if you agree or have anything to build off of, but that's where I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think like what you said, like taking the time to rest is so important, because at least with me personally, that is something that I like tend to forget to do. I'll get so consumed by work or school, and I'm like, I feel bad, or I feel guilty for, laying on my couch and doing nothing. But those days where you lay on your couch and watch movies are actually very valuable to your mental health and to how much like you're balancing. And taking a good rest day is super important, or a rest week, or however long you need personally. I think that another thing, that we're facing today is social media. Social media is very prominent in our lives, as I'm sure a lot of us know. And I think it's this very like new day and age where social media can be very isolating. You're also, scrolling, maybe comparing yourself to others. And that can, cause, you to feel stressed, or it can cause you to feel not your most confident self. And I think that social media, you definitely need to set some sort of healthy boundary with. And on top of that, like you mentioned earlier, there is this kind of stigma. And I think that this is literally for anyone, because you can experience mental health issues, whether you're 5 years old or 80 years old. It doesn't matter. And so there is this kind of stigma that I think is definitely being normalized nowadays, which is great. But there was this stigma kind of around mental health, and that if you have some sort of mental health problem, you're weak. And that you can't talk about it. But nowadays that's so different. And it's encouraged to talk about like how we're doing now. And I think that it's really great that we're kind of breaking that stigma and that it needs to be talked about more. And you need to, I hope that everyone knows that, you know, they should feel comfortable with whoever their support system is to talk about whatever they're going through.
That's there. I don't even want to distract from what you just shared. Like I would love for that to just like live in our minds and for us to be reminded of that every day. Thank you for that. And it really is a reflection of a lot of what like the research is telling us. So what we know at Born This Way Foundation is that young people, younger generations, when I say young people, it's kind of weird because I'm like, I'm technically young, 29 is young, right? Say yes. But I think about we hear often like peer-to-peer support, like that. I think is something that really surfaces a lot. And you're doing it, you do it every day. You support each other peer to peer, right? Like young person to friends are constantly supporting each other, be it online or in the classroom. And we know that interest in peer support and that type of space, I would say counseling to some degree, has grown since the pandemic hit the US, and a lot of the restrictions really isolated us. And so we know that nearly half of students say that the disruption caused by the pandemic has made them to like more likely to seek peer counseling. And one thing about the statistic that I really wanted to emphasize, just as a person of color, is that this in part is particularly true for Black students, Latinx students, and transgender students. So young people who are marginalized, those of us who statistically find it more difficult to connect to these types of resources, are the ones really seeking other, in my case, like Latinas, to just relate to and to talk about because of our shared experiences to some degree. And so I just want to share that when you know this and you know that you're doing it already, reaching out to each other, learning the skills to do it in a way that is constructive and that reminds you like how to go about those conversations and feel a little more safe and comfortable is really important. And I'd love to hear, Katie, from you. I can see that you're nodding, and I'm sure this is just so reflective of the work that you see in schools and at FIDM.
Mm-hmm. I just want to touch on kind of one major point, that it is important to remember that you don't need to have a mental illness to seek help or to need help. And just because you're struggling, just because you're having a hard time with something, also doesn't mean that you have a mental illness, right? I think it's really important to remember that support and help is important for everyone, and it's important to reach out and ask for that help when you are struggling.
Thank you so much. And Maddie and Lexi, I know in our previous conversations, you had some comments just on how important it is for us to have people that we can turn to. Feel free to jump in. And anyone who's in the room, if there's anything that resonates with you, remember you can even like a snap, like you want to unmute the thing and snap, just so we know that you're hearing us, that you are here with us. Like that would be perfect. I see some smiles from far. But go ahead, Maddie.
I see the snaps. I appreciate that. Peer-to-peer support and relying on each other. Yeah, it's never been, I think, more important, just because those are your peers, are the people, and the people that you can trust are the people that can most empathize with you, you can be most comfortable with. And for me, I find that my peers are going through the same things that I am. They're sorting through some of the same challenges that I am. So I love my mom. She's great, but she's not here with me going through this. She's not a young person going through this transition specifically right now at college with me. So I think having other young people that are experiencing similar things makes it a little bit easier and gives you more validation. It makes me a little bit more comfortable to say, are you going through this like I am going through this? And then they're like, yes, oh my God. And I'm like, okay, let's do this together. So relying on each other is a huge just weight off your shoulders. Lexi, I'll point to you.
And can I actually jump in on that one? Because I hear that so often when I'm here individually with a student. They always feel like they're so alone in their experience, or they're the only ones going through it. And I always tell them, just talk with someone else, ask them if they're experiencing it. And I will even tell them, I've had this conversation 3 times this week with different students that are feeling the same way or going through a very similar situation. And just after I say that, like, I can just see, like, in their body language, just like the pressure and the weight of, like, okay, I'm not so alone in this, right? So that's why I always encourage students to then reach out to their peers, because they are, as you mentioned, they're going through similar situations, or they might be the only ones who really fully understand what you're experiencing and will make you feel validated in those struggles or those experiences. So I love that you brought that up, Maddie, because I think that's such an important, yeah. Go ahead, Lexi.
Yeah, I was just gonna say pretty much the same thing. I know that in personal experience, sometimes just in my brain, like, I'll convince myself that I'm the only person in the entire world that's going through this. And a lot of people's brains will be doing that, and all of us will be telling ourselves that we're the only ones going through this, when in reality there's so many people going through the exact same situation or a similar situation. And I think that just in general, it's just so good to be able to talk about something. I know that's how I personally like deal with whether it's a fight with a friend or my homework problem. Like I'll always just like to talk things through. And I think that it's just so important to be able to like talk about that, whether it's with a friend or with someone at your school, or with a great program, or like the Be There certificate. So like you all said, like, just to know that you're not alone, because I know that sometimes mental health can be very isolating. But you're genuinely not alone in whatever you're going through. And there are so many people around you and so many great resources to reach out to that can, help you, whether it's just to be someone to listen or someone to like really work through whatever you're going through with you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Lexi. And it's so closely connected to something that Maddie was Maddie, I know you wanted to share a little bit about the validation and listening, and specifically around like, what does it look like? Okay, so we're sharing that it's important to support each other, but like, what does it look like? Can you walk us through excuse me, how you feel it would be best for you and your peers to be equipped? Maddie, I know you had some comments on that.
So yeah, I guess little like disclaimer, like something actually I kind of was meriting with this is like, I don't know if in like high school I was like given the right tools to be able to like deal with like a situation in the right way. So I kind of rely on how I think best, what I would want to receive, which is like validation and a space to be able to vent and know that I'm supported and I'm loved no matter how I'm feeling. And also that those feelings can change. I think that's really important, that like, I really want to talk about it today, but tomorrow I don't want to talk about it. And then the next day, maybe I just need a distraction. I think that is really important to acknowledge. But I think like Born This Way, Be There certificate, I think spaces like that are essential, because sometimes, although these conversations are popping up more, I think especially in college they are, but I want to say in high school, for me, it was still a little bit under the rug. I don't know if I was completely given all the tools, which I think should be talked about a little bit more often, for everybody, not just the people that seek them out. Like everybody should be able to have these conversations.
And I love that you said that validation. And I think that tool of just saying like, that sounds really hard, right? That must have been really difficult, right? Those simple sentences mean so much to somebody when they're expressing what they're going through. And I think that's an important thing to remember when you're talking with somebody about their mental health or their struggles, is that you don't need to fix anything. You can just be there to listen, right? There are a lot of research and statistics in therapy that shows that just being able to just sit for an hour and just talk about what they're going through does so much. And even if the therapist doesn't really provide much kind of critical feedback of ways to change, just the act of sitting and just talking for an hour does so much. So I think it's really important to remember that when you are talking with somebody about their mental health and what they're going through, is you don't have to tell them anything. You don't have to fix anything. Just listen and tell them, I'm really sorry about what you're going through, and that sounds really difficult, right? And that does so much for someone. So I really like that point, Maddie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you just hit so many different like topics that I was just like, yes, 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 yes. I like completely agree now, like as a college student, and I still have, don't get me wrong, so much to learn about myself and life and everything like that. But even a few years older than I was when I graduated high school, I like look back at myself in high school and I'm like, wow, I don't think I realized that this, and that were going on. And I think it's because it wasn't talked about in my high school, or I didn't have the resources. And now that I'm like realizing these things, I'm like, oh, like it's so great that, you know, my school FIDM is doing something like this, because I kind of wish that I had this at a younger age. So I could have like processed things better, or learned to, you know, handle things a different way or something like that. So I think it's just really interesting that you also kind of had that same experience. And I'm the same way, where it's like, maybe today I call my mom all the time. I'm always on the phone with her. She's probably so sick of me, but I'm always calling her and I'm like, hi, I just need to vent and I just need to ramble for about a solid 2.5 hours. You don't even like have to speak, literally just listen on the phone. And that's just what I need. And then tomorrow, I never ever want to talk about it again. So I love that you also touched on that too. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I really agree with what you said, is that, you know, every day varies, and sometimes it's just nice to have someone to like listen to you.
And even with that, so something I always say, and I think is a great tool, if you're the one who needs someone to talk to, right? I always like to start that conversation with telling the person what you need. So if you do want some solutions, right, tell them, this is a conversation and I need some solutions. Or if it's just a conversation you want to just vent, tell them, I'm just looking to vent, I just need you to listen. And I think it's really important to let people know what you need before you go into that conversation, so they can help you through that in the way that you need.
And you can also ask. Sometimes the other person won't say it, but you can always ask, is this a listen or a fix it moment? And that can help really change the direction of that conversation, and really how that person feels supported. So thank you all so much for sharing that. And it sounds like it's something that resonated with the folks in the room. I saw some nods, and I hear you, Lexi, and sometimes in how we communicate with the adults in our lives, the wonderful, caring adults, even with the most beautiful intentions, it's really important to learn how to have that conversation even on their end. So the certificate itself can be taken by anyone. I'm frankly still trying to get my Latina mom to take the certificate. Like, mom, please, I work for this. Can you please just, and it's not easy to break that stigma, I'll be honest, but it's equipped me to navigate conversations with her a lot better. And also with my younger sister. I have a 19-year-old sister. And so knowing that I can support her and that she can support me, because we both, the tool kind of, it allows you to practice how to say those things, the hey, fix it or listen moment, or to sort of articulate and really gain the literacy and the knowledge to do that in a really low stakes environment where you're not actually interacting with someone. I sometimes get the pinchy sweats when you're sharing something so personal and you're like, oh gosh, I hope this person doesn't want to just immediately fix it, or or you just have expectations for how the conversation will go. But learning how to navigate that, having grace with yourself and practicing in really low stakes spaces like a course can be either a refresher in a lot of the in a lot of ways, like to what Maddie and Lexi said, because these tactics are talked about in the course. It's like, okay, I know I can rely on this, or I can really listen without needing to fix, and especially without judgment. So thank you all so much for sharing that. It resonated with me so much. And I think what's really beautiful is that as you learn these things and how to support someone else, you're also simultaneously learning how to support yourself. And I'd love to hear from you both in taking this certificate. What were some parts, like actual components within the certificate or a section within it that like stood out to you, or that you were just like, I can't, I'm really excited that I learned X, Y, and Z?
I was gonna say, well, all of it was just like very informative. And like mental health, it's not obviously a new thing whatsoever, but it is, like I said earlier, like something that we're kind of normalizing more. So we're talking about it more. So there is just so much more to learn about it. And even when you think you're perfect at a topic, like there's still always more to learn. So I think as a whole, it was just interesting to like see all the tips, see how you can help other people in your life and see how you can help yourself. But something that really resonated with me was kind of the setting boundaries part. I think a lot of the times in past friend groups, I've been seen as like a therapist friend. But I have to sometimes remind people and even remind myself, I am not in any way, shape, or form an actual therapist. I am a 19-year-old child. So setting the boundaries where sometimes I would have to look and be like, how is this starting to affect like my schedule? Is this starting to affect my mental health? Or is it starting to affect maybe like a friendship? And just kind of being like, hey, I'm here as like a resource always. I'm always here to listen, but sometimes I don't have, advice for everything because I'm not trained in this, department. And I think that here's like, have you talked to your parents or have you talked to someone at your school? So kind of redirecting them to someone who is a professional way in those like open-ended questions. So it doesn't seem like you're trying to shut them down and be like, I'm not a resource for you, because I am a resource for you. I just don't know everything.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo Lexi there. I think I have a habit of, and this actually relates to what Katie was saying about like, what do you need in this conversation? I tend to want and need solutions and a plan. And so because I want that in a conversation or in seeking advice, I tend to also give that when that's not always the answer, or what somebody even wants. So knowing how to like set boundaries and knowing to listen to what is best for somebody else as in facilitating that conversation, not jumping in, like Lexi said, leaving it open-ended, is something that I need to remember in having those conversations with other people, because not everybody's brain is the same or like works the same as mine does. And remembering that even though I have the best intentions, I really do, like, I really just want to help, but sometimes that's not the answer.
And I love that. I think that setting boundaries is such like a key component to it, right? It's really important to always like check in with yourself and say, am I okay right now to be able to help someone else? And if you're not, that's great. And you can even say, Maddie, you can even say like, I love you. I want to help you. I want to support you. And the best way for me to do that is to provide these resources for you, right? Instead of overextending yourself. If when you check in with yourself, you say, I can't be there as much as I want to for you. This is how I can help you, right? This is what I can do for you. So it's really, really important to check on yourself and set those boundaries to keep your mental health okay.
Thank you so much. And I'd love to lean into, so, okay, you've had this conversation and now your friend is like, I do need you to support me further, or like you, if they're not quite at the point where, and the certificate kind of walks you through this, but they're not quite at the point where they need to be sort of where you need to share a specific mental health resource, but they kind of just, they want to hang out and just like, again, have you listen or do an activity together. I'd love for Maddie and Lexi and anyone in the room, if you'd like to share, to walk us through a time when you supported a friend or a friend supported you and what that looked like. And I know that your stories or what you shared may lean on some of these topics that we've already shared, but I think really putting a picture to it might really help us. Lexi, you can go first. Okay, Maddie.
Oh, Lexi, do you want to go? Okay.
Mhm.
Actually, shortly into my time here, one of my friends that I had made pretty quickly, I could tell that she was struggling, and that night support looked like just not leaving. Just even though you say that you're okay and you say that you're gonna be fine, I know that I knew her well enough to know that, like, I think it's best to just sit here and be here with you. We don't have to talk, we don't have to plan anything, but I could tell that underneath, I'm okay, I'm fine. Go, have a great night. Like, I really think it's best if I just be here with you. And like, I could tell that I was not overstepping that boundary, because then once I said, I really want to stay, I really think it would be best if we just chill together tonight. Quickly, she was like, okay, if you're sure. I'm like, yes, I am sure. Supporting a friend in that moment just simply was not leaving.
Yeah, I think I've had like I've had a few friends that, but in this specific scenario, I had a friend that had a really rough time in high school. And throughout that period, I was like a very open resource, I guess, that they could, always come to me and talk to me and call me when they needed to. So when I left for college, it was kind of hard for this person. But he still, like, to this day calls me a lot and just like kind of talks with me and talks through, like, maybe it's not even something that he's going through or something that he's mad about or sad about, or anxious about. Sometimes it's just like, hey, like, this is what my day is going like. And I think, like you said, just always like being there for your friends when you can, when you're available to, and just being that kind of like ear or shoulder to cry on, or like kind of whatever they need in that moment. And sometimes if they don't ask, like you said earlier, like, ask, like, hey, like, what do you need out of this conversation? Do you need me to listen? Do you need me to give you advice? Do you just want to cry? Like, should we watch movies and eat ice cream? Like, what's the game plan here? And I know we kind of covered all of that, but I feel like a lot of the times that's like what someone will just call me or send me a voice memo, and that we just kind of talk it out. And that's usually how my friends at least want to handle things. So that's what I've usually experienced.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that and for being there for your friends in that way. I'm sure they really appreciated that, and it's also something that we can all learn from. So I appreciate you both sharing that. I think what you shared, Lexi, makes me think about also when someone calls you and they want to celebrate a win, like celebrating the good, and knowing, I think to a lot of what we shared at the beginning, and even in the sharing of our emojis, we can feel all of these emotions sometimes at once, and it's not a singular path. We can feel exhausted or feel overwhelmed from schoolwork, but simultaneously really grateful and happy and joyful, and these can happen at once, and we're constantly navigating all of these different emotions. And so I welcome us all to celebrate our wins too, to call each other when the good things happen, and remind ourselves that these things are also something to connect about and to really lean into together, to build community, and really just want to express how absolutely grateful we are to all of you for being here, to Maddie, to Lexi for being so candid in your experiences, for sharing your perspectives with us, Katie and Gwen for your ongoing support for FIDM students in your roles, and absolutely everyone else who brought us here. There's a team of people at FIDM that care so deeply about the students, about each of you and your peers, and are actively thinking of creative ways to share resources with you, to talk with you, and to create invitations for us all to be there for one another. And so I really just want to thank FIDM for their amazing work in that space as well. If anyone is interested in learning more about Born This Way Foundation and how you can get involved with our work, Be There certificate is just one of the many programs. Please visit us at bornthisway.foundation. Most people look up Lady Gaga nonprofit, and that'll get you to us too. And then on the screen, you'll see a QR code that will lead you directly to the certificate. I invite you to take it to learn how to be there for someone in your life. And also please know that you can take 10 minutes today, 30 minutes tomorrow, and finish it at your own pace. The idea is that you're really walking through this resource in a way that makes the most sense for you. And then, of course, if you have the need for assistance or further support, please reach out to Katie. The email is on the screen, and I'm sure in every other screen at your school. With that, I just want to extend again our deepest gratitude, and the call to action is to really learn one golden rule, lean into it, and do it a golden rule at a time or a day at a time, but really learn how to be there for one another, because it's really, as we've heard today, something that could change a life or even save a life.